And then the Sunday looks like this, so 6 PM my time, so once again kicking off at exactly the same time tomorrow, finishing up at 12 AM, so it's going to finish kind of late over here, but, you know, it's a West Coast event, that's kind of what you expect now, being a European Caller GG fan. But that's the schedule for the weekend, just wanted to point that out exactly when things are going to start for you guys, and if you have a particular, you know, favourite team you want to be watching, this is how to convert the time into your specific time zone. Let's get into some storylines then, first of all. So these are all the teams that are competing. Note that the New York Subliners, they don't have Happy in here yet because none of these teams, well, the Los Angeles Guerrillas have confirmed their team. Seattle Surge, I'm not even sure they technically have, but we've heard about for a while that Panda's going to be in the team rather than Enable, but I don't think they've officially come out and said that's going to be the team. The Mutineers have said that Ferro's going to be in the team, as we talked about yesterday. But, you know, that was pending league approval or whatever, right? So, who really knows? So, I wanted to go through a number of storylines here, because, of course, we've got all these roster changes that have happened pre this event, and then you've got the overarching storylines of Atlanta versus Dallas, OpTic Gaming LA versus Los Angeles Guerrillas. Let's hop right into it here. So first of all, Atlanta FaZe as a team on the whole, because we saw them win the last event at their, you know, last home series. Here they don't have Chicago as competition. We thought going into the Atlanta home series, Chicago was going to be their toughest competition. Here, they're not facing Chicago. They're facing Dallas Empire. I guess you would consider maybe to be the closest competitor, but a lot of people are thinking that the Minnesota Rocker are actually maybe the third best team right now and could compete with Atlanta FaZe. FaZe had to reverse sweep Minnesota in the Atlanta FaZe home series to even win that event, right? They went down 2-0 to Minnesota and brought it back, which is very impressive. Key thing to keep an eye on here, though, is that after Chicago won the London home series, I really felt like a lot of teams had done a deep dive into what Chicago brought to the table, and they brought some heavy counter strats at the Atlanta home series. We saw some pretty close series from Chicago. They really struggled to get through, especially the first match against Toronto. Then against Minnesota, they got through in a 3-1 fashion. Then they lost to the Mutineers. Seems pretty clear to me that those teams had, especially in the Search and Destroys, done a deep dive into how Chicago had been playing. Still confuses me with Scum and Formal and Hector being on that team, but whatever. So they've done a deep dive into how that team had, performing in the Search and Destroys and tried to heavy counter those strats. We saw that really clearly with the Toronto game on Piccadilly. They just 6-1 smoked Chicago on that map. Clearly, they were prepared for everything Chicago was going to bring to the table there. Now, I know for an absolute fact that every single analyst and coach in the entire league right now is looking at Atlanta FaZe and thinking, look, what do these guys do? How can we beat it? How can we set up our play to best counter them? Do we have to play a bit slower? Do we have to we focus more on the ARs? Do we even try and change the meta a little bit and bring something else to the table when we play these guys? And especially in the Search and Destroy, I'm sure they're looking into all their strats. So Atlanta FaZe, I'm sure they're trying to develop new things and bring new stuff to the table, but it's definitely something to consider because Chicago had a tough time, I think largely because they won the previous event, and then a lot of teams were looking into what they do. This time it's probably going to be the same thing for FaZe. In my opinion, that's not going to be enough to stop them winning this weekend, but definitely something to keep your eyes on because this is a very talented squad for sure. There's no doubt about that. But every team is looking into what they do right now. So whether they can go above and beyond that, we will have to see. Then I wanted to point out Shotzi on the Dallas Empire because this team supposedly has been playing better. They've got Rambo in there now. But Shotzi's really been the underperforming player of the last few events, and this is where he really has to turn it around. They've got a tough group with FaZe in, with New York in, with I think Florida in, so you would expect them to get out of it, but if they do beat New York, they're probably going to have to play FaZe, right? Which, brings things into question. They might have just one series on the line, whether they get through or whether they go home, and who knows exactly what's going to happen here. So, Shotzi, obviously a very talented player in theory. Haven't seen too much from him yet, so wanted to pinpoint him as look, watch out for Shotzi this weekend. If he performs well, Dallas Empire could, be a final, be even a championship contender here. I don't think there's any denying that. Then you've got Ferro coming in for the Florida Mutineers. This is the first event he's played in a very long time, at least in a professional setting. I think the Pro League qualifier was maybe the last one he played last year in Black Ops 4. He is a champion. He won Stage 2 playoffs in the World War II season under Team Caliber. Very talented player. Here coming in for Pristini, I guess in terms of role swap, it kind of makes sense, but they really don't have much practice time with the Florida Mutineers. So I can't imagine they'll be spectacular, and as I say, they have a tough group. So this is where Ferro kind of has to prove himself, because if he has a good couple of series here, people will be looking at him and, who knows exactly what's happening, because they must have like signed him to the Mutineers, because they can't just be expecting him to play for free. So they must have signed him to some sort of contract, whether that means he's on a minimum 50k salary for the rest of the year with Mutineers on their permanent sub bench. Who knows? But, if that isn't the case, then FaZe really has to prove himself this weekend. He's a player to keep your eyes on, because that's just a great storyline to follow, him being back in the league. Then you've got the Guerrillas. They make the biggest change we've seen so far this season, without a doubt. Blaz, Spart, and Vivid coming into the squad. Aches, Lacefield, and Saints coming out of the team. This is a massive change. Bevel's just said on Twitter he feels like they've been doing better and playing better, and they've got a lot of distance out of these guys in their last couple of days. But at the end of the day, they've probably only been playing together for about a week. That's probably not going to cut it against some of these better teams. But we will have to see, because in theory, they could be a better team now, right? They've got some, younger, more hungry talent, I suppose. But they don't have that leadership figure Aches on the team. So to what degree is that going to impact them? We will have to see, because arguably some kind of inconsistent players here now you've got on the Guerrillas team, but in my opinion it was kind of worth the shuffle. Then you have Happy on the New York Subliners, if that is indeed to be the case. Similar situation to Pharaoh, but I'm not expecting as much out of Happy as I am out of Pharaoh. Like, he hasn't played for a very, very long time. Infinite Warfare was the last time I suppose he was really relevant in the competitive sense. But of course the Subliners guys get on with him, and maybe their vibes and their chemistry is better now with him than it was with Zero. But I'm still not expecting a phenomenal performance out of the Subliners by any means. And as I said, they've got a tough group. They've got FaZe, they've got Dallas. They're going to have to beat one, if not both of those teams to make it through. So not an ideal situation for the Subliners. And then you've got OpTic Gaming Los Angeles just as an overall storyline, because this is a team that we haven't seen much out of yet. They have zero, they're on a fat 0 right now of CDL points. They need to win at least a series or a couple of series or whatever to get off the mark. And yes, their first game's against the Guerrillas, a Guerrillas that's just made a roster change. A lot of people saying as well that OpTic Gaming are looking much, much better now. So I think a lot of people are expecting OpTic to come in kind of hot this weekend and to see how things go. But yeah, something to keep your eyes on, because they haven't done so well so far in this league at all. But they have a decent pool. They have a decent pool that they can try and get out of. And if they do manage that, then they can get some serious CDL points on the line and start overtaking a lot of teams that are sitting around 10 CDL points, the likes of Toronto and teams to this effect. So that's another one. Then you've got Panda on the Seattle Surge, so of course another roster change coming in for Enable. Apparently he's been playing pretty damn well. Of course he's a very talented player. Does this put Seattle Surge above the point of being just, a lower tier team, being mid-tier, mid-upper tier? Who knows? They could come in really fiery this weekend, and I think that makes more sense in terms of role swaps. We'll have to see how Panda performs, because we've seen, of course, his former teammate GodRx do some absolutely godlike things on Minnesota Rocker. They're actually going to be playing first match of the entire tournament. Then you have just a couple more. Abizi and Simp versus Clayster, so World Championship winners on the previous season. Abizi and Simp, of course, Clayster now has Shotzi, Hugin, Illy, I guess, is his young guns on the squad. Can Abizi and Simp get the better of him? They may well play in the second round. And then the Guerrillas versus OpTic Gaming LA. The battle for Los Angeles, I suppose, is something to keep your eyes on as well. But that is the very first game of the tournament. So let us go through some predictions then to finish off the video. I'd be really intrigued to hear your thoughts on all I've just said down in the comment section below. Is there some key storylines you're keeping an eye on, or which exact way do you expect this tournament to go? And of course, I've kind of hinted on it throughout the video. First up, Minnesota, Seattle. As I say, I think Minnesota are a fantastic team right now. I called them to beat Paris a couple of times in the last event, which a lot of people thought Paris was a better squad. I think Minnesota right now plays the game so well, and they have some really, really talented players that can pop off at any moment. Seattle is in a kind of similar boat, but I can't expect them to beat Minnesota, given they've just had not that, well, to be fair, they've had quite a bit of practice time with Panda now, but on paper, I still think Minnesota's a better team, and they've proven more to me in terms of they can play the game better. However, I really can see this going to Game 5. I think it could be a 3-2 Minnesota. I think Minnesota's Search and Destroy is going to be really, really good. And Seattle have shown to be able to take respawns. And especially with Panda coming into the team, maybe you got more slaying power now. I expect them to take 1 or 2 respawns off Minnesota here. 3-2, 3-1 for Minnesota in my books. LAG versus OGLA. No, okay, Bells can say that the team has been doing good, all he likes, but a lot of people are saying that OGLA look much better now. So, in my opinion, OGLA are going to take this one. I feel like they've got to get off the mark at some point. I'm going to say it's going to be a 3-1 to OG. Then we get Minnesota versus OG. I'm going to say Minnesota win that one. I just think they are slightly the better team. They go through in like a 3-1 fashion or something. And then OG beats, let's say Seattle beats LAG, and then OG beats Seattle. So I'm going to say Minnesota and OpTic make it through from the first group. Then the second group, Atlanta, Florida. I just can't see that with Ferro you're going to get past Atlanta. They're going to win in a 3-1 fashion. Then Dallas, New York. I'm going to say Dallas are going to win that. I don't think they're going to be good enough with happy New York, to be honest. Then you've got Atlanta, Dallas. Atlanta will get through that one in, say, a 3-1 fashion, but there could definitely be some game 5s on the cards here, because they actually beat Dallas 3-0 the first time they played them way back in Minnesota. Then New York, Florida, who knows? I'm going to take Florida in that one, to be honest. And then Dallas will play Florida. Dallas will beat them. So I'm going to say Minnesota, OpTic get out of the first pool. Atlanta, Dallas, I can't even speak, get out the second pool. How does that exactly work out then? So Dallas will come out the bottom, which will mean Dallas will end up playing Minnesota in the first round. And then OG will play Atlanta. So I would then say Minnesota, Dallas, who knows? This is going to be a really tight series. I feel like this is going game 5 all over. Depends how Dallas perform in the early half. I'm kind of tempted to say Dallas here, to be honest. So yeah, okay, whatever. I'm just going to go with Dallas. I'm going to say Dallas is going to meet Minnesota and make the grand finals. Atlanta's going to beat OpTic and make the grand finals. And we're going to have Atlanta, Dallas in the grand finals of the Los Angeles home series. And Atlanta are going to take it, you know, once again in a 3-1 or something. But, you know, very interesting to see how this weekend's going to go down. Those are just my kind of quick fire predictions on it. But I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Which team do you think could be a big surprise? Because I'm predicting OpTic to get out of the groups and then not get much further than that, because if they do end up losing to Minnesota and come at the bottom and Atlanta win both their series, they're probably going to be playing Atlanta in the first round, I believe, is how it's going to work out, because the team that comes in, you know, hot and wins their first 2 series, they're going to be playing against the team that's theoretically worse because they lost a game in their pool. Have to see how it goes though, because there definitely could be some upset potential here. Like a lot of these teams, like Seattle, LAG, Florida, and New York, all making changes before this event. So that's why I'm pretty much predicting these teams to lose, just because they've made changes in the very near past. So it's tough to say that, okay, yeah, you're just going to come out and smoke, you know, New York, for example, just going to come out and smoke Dallas with Happy as a substitute. But who knows? And it's definitely possible for Seattle and Los Angeles Guerrillas to show something that we haven't seen before, because we really have no expectations of these teams, which is why I predicted them to lose. But, you know, arguably you could say that, look, Los Angeles Guerrillas are going to be way better with this new lineup, and you could argue that pretty comfortably. Are they going to be better than an OGLA, which apparently has been performing very well? I don't think so this time around, but we'll have to see. Only a few hours time we will get these answers for you. So these are the first games of the day. Of course, I predicted pretty much the entire weekend there, but this is when things all kick off. So 10 PM Pacific time, 1 PM Eastern, 6 PM my time, 7 PM Central European time. I don't even want to work out what's going on in Australia and New Zealand. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like if you did, subscribe if you're new as always. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.